So today we are starting lesson 3-5. It's the first new lesson of the new quarter. We've done review lessons on 1 through 4. And it is another equation, okay? So we have learned all about slope-intercept. Okay, we've been doing that equation since the beginning of the year. We learned about point slope. Okay, we just learned that one. And now we have standard form. Standard form, it looks like this. AX plus BY equals C, where A, B, and C are some numbers, okay? And whenever you have an equation that looks like this, it's really easy to find the y-intercept. And something new that we're going to look for is the x-intercept, okay? And it's actually pretty easy. Okay, so one thing that you need to understand about the standard form of an equation is that A cannot be negative and it cannot be a fraction. And so part of teaching you this lesson is teaching you also how to appropriately write standard form. So, and then if for some reason you end up with a negative or a fraction where A is, I will teach you how to get rid of those, okay? All right, so we are going to come down to this first example where we are going to just find the x and the y-intercept to begin with. And so the thing about finding your x and your y-intercept is if you're able to find those 2 points, those are the only 2 points you really need to graph an equation. So example 1, what are the x and the y-intercepts and the slope of the graph 3x plus 4y equals 24? So we're going to take this equation and we're going to find the 2 intercepts. Where it crosses this x-axis down here, that'll be your x-intercept, and where it crosses the y-axis right here, that'll be your y-intercept. So let's take this equation and write it underneath x-intercept. Okay. And I'm going to also write it right underneath where it says y-intercept. And I am going to follow the steps up here. Step number 1 says to find the x-intercept, you substitute 0 in for y and solve for x. So I'm just going to put 0 where the y is and solve for x, and that will tell me where it crosses the x-axis on my graph. So what that looks like is this: 3x plus 4 times 0 equals 24. Okay? Now I can fully solve this out if I wanted to, but 4 times 0 is 0. And so really what's happening there is this is just getting, okay? And you're left with 3x equals 24. Then you divide by 3 to figure out what x is, and x equals 8. So what that means is that on the x-axis down here, you're going to plot a point at 8, right here. And what is the ordered pair for this right here? 8, 0. So your x-intercept is 8, and the way that you write it is 8, 0. Okay? Now we're going to do the same thing for y. I want to find my y-intercept. So I will follow step 2. Find the y-intercept by substituting 0 for x. So basically you want to get rid of that x so you can figure out what y is. So we plug 0 into where the x is. Okay, this is being canceled out. And we're left with 4y equals 24. Divide by 4. And y equals 6. That means that I can plot a point at 6 on my y-axis, and I write my y-intercept as 0, 6. Okay? And then I could draw my line and I have my graph. All right. So that's x and y intercept. Are there any questions on how to find that? Okay. All right. The next thing we're going to find is the slope. With our given information that we have right here, there are 3 ways that we can find slope. Okay. The first way that you can find slope is rise over run from your graph. Okay. So if I use this method, I can rise, and I'm rising 6, and then I'm running a -8. Okay, so it's 6 over -8, which can simplify to -3/4. So my slope, it looks like it's going to be -3/4. So that's one way to find slope, and I'm going to show you all 3 ways here. If you have a graph, rise over run would be easiest. If you don't have a graph, though, if you don't have a graph, the next one is going to be the easiest. I'll show you. Is using the slope formula with these 2 points. Okay, you have 8, 0, and you have 0, 6. So I'm going to use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I could write that here if I wanted to. So that would be 6 minus 0 over 0 minus 8.
So 6 over -8.
Huh?
So
We need to write down that little step number, or that little way number 2 down.
Yeah, I would write all of them down, and then you'll choose which one you like the best. So, and it all depends on what information you have. If you don't have a graph, you can't use rise over run. You need to know an alternate method. So this gives us 6 over -8, which is -3/4, which is what we got with this one. Yes.
So, oh wait, never mind.
So it looks like our slope is -3/4. But what if we didn't have a graph, or we didn't have our 2 intercepts, and all we had was this equation right here? So step number 3, you have 3x plus 4y equals 24. And I do want you to write this down, because this is also going to lead into the next step here, turning this standard form of an equation into slope-intercept form. Okay. Now, what you could do is you could take your equation and turn it into slope-intercept form, and then you find the m in your equation, and that's your slope. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to do, because to turn it into slope-intercept form, you have to isolate your y. So we're going to get rid of the 3x. Okay. And these cancel out, and you're left with 4y equals -3x plus 24.
So if you want to do,
Okay, I still need to isolate my y, so I'm going to divide everything by 4. And this cancels out, and I'm left with y equals -3/4 x plus 6. And so again, -3/4 is our slope, and it matches what we got from the other 2 methods. Mhm. So we've done something similar to this. Yes. So the slope-intercept form of the equation is y equals -3/4 x plus 6. Okay. Now, it asks for slope-intercept equation, but notice that we already have the slope from one of these 2 methods, and we already have the y-intercept over here. I really didn't need to do all of this work, but I did it to show you that there are multiple ways to get to your final answer. Okay. This was just one example of how there were 3 ways to get what we wanted. Slope-intercept equation, we could have used our graph here, or we could have used the equation and did all this work here to get us down to slope-intercept form. So are there any questions so far on some of the steps that we have done? Okay. Nope. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to go from slope-intercept form to standard form. And this is one of the first problems on your homework that you'll have to do. Remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c, meaning that your x and your y have to be on the left side of your equation. And according to my notes up at the top of this page, a has to be positive and it cannot be a fraction. So if it is one of those, I'll show you how to get rid of that. So in looking at this equation and knowing that we have to have our x on this side, what are we going to do to both sides of this equation? No. Yeah, we're going to add 3/4 x to both sides because we need to get this x over here. This 6 represents your c because it doesn't have a variable, so your 6 will stay there. So we're going to add 3/4 x. So we end up with 3/4 x plus y equals 6. So what's wrong with this equation? We have it in standard form, but what's wrong with it? Yeah, there's a fraction. Anytime that you have a fraction as your a, you need to multiply the entire equation by the denominator. Because when you do that, it gets rid of this 4, and you're just left with the numerator of 3. Yes. So 4 times 3/4 is 3x. 4 times y is 4y. And 4 times 6 is 24. Oops. So all I did was distribute my 4 to every term inside of the equation. And I ended up where I started at the top. Nick? Because you're not going to get a problem like I'm giving you on your notes where you come full circle. Because the reason I'm doing this is example 1, you're able to do the entire front page of your homework based on example 1. So I just combined it all into one problem. So when we go and we look at your notes, your homework, you're going to think the notes were a little bit more difficult than your homework is. Because your homework just has like 1 or 2 steps at a time where I've combined all of it into one problem.
Right. So like from the standard form equation, is that how you check your work?
You can, yeah, you could check it that way.
When do you have to?
No. But like the very first problem on your homework is you're taking, did you just gruff at me? Excuse me, I'm pausing the video. Okay, we're now going to go to the back and we're going to go to example 2, which is very similar to example 1. So if you get stuck at a part, you might want to look back at what we did because I want you to try to find some of this stuff on your own. So on example 2, we have this equation and I want to find my x and y intercept. So I'm going to write this equation underneath both of them.
Is this the same thing?
Yeah. And I want you to find the x and the y intercept. Remember to find the x intercept here, you plug 0 where the y is and solve for x. To find the y intercept, you plug 0 where the x is and solve for y. So I want everybody to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, here are the intercepts. Okay.
I'm so good at this.
Okay, now that you have found the intercepts, I want you to find the slope using whatever method you preferred when we did example 1. Okay, so I'm going to pause. Okay, so the slope, I chose to graph my intercepts. So I graphed my intercepts and then I used rise over run for the slope. Okay, so that is how I chose to find the slope. Now, if you chose a different way, it doesn't mean that it's wrong, but you should still end up with 1/2. Now what I want you guys to do is I want you to take this equation, x minus 2y equals -2, and I want you to convert it into slope-intercept form. And so that means you need to get it to y equals mx plus b, okay? So I'm gonna give you a minute to do that. Okay, so this is what you should have gotten it once you converted the standard form to slope-intercept form. Also, since you already knew your slope and you have your y-intercept up here, you could have just used that information. So our slope is 1/2 and our y-intercept is 1. Okay. Now, any questions so far? Okay. The next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna take the slope-intercept equation and turn it back into standard form. Now, I know that the answer is up at the top of your paper, but I want you to understand the process. So to get it in standard form, we're trying to get it into ax plus by equals c. So we are going to take the 1/2 x and we're going to subtract it from both sides. So we end up with -1/2 x plus y equals 1. Now, what do you notice about this equation? It's a fraction and it's negative. So anytime you have, so let's just look at the fraction first. What did you say, Jaden? Times -2. So because it's a fraction, we're going to multiply by the denominator, and because it's negative, we're going to multiply it by a negative denominator. So we're going to multiply this whole thing by a -2. Okay? So when we multiply, we're going to distribute the -2 to all terms inside that parentheses. So -2 times the -1/2 is just 1x or x. -2 times positive y is -2y. And -2 times 1 is a -2. And you should end up back to where we started, way up here, and we did. Okay? So you get familiar with maneuvering the equations the way that you need them to be maneuvered in order to solve the problem. Okay, so far examples 1 and 2 on your notes cover problems 1 through 12 on your homework. Now examples 3 through 4 are very simple, and they are going to cover problems 13 through 20. So they cover a lot and they're very simple. So I want you to look at example 3 here. What type of line do we have? Okay, it's a vertical line. So this is a vertical line. And the way that you write an equation for vertical lines, because they don't have a slope, okay, they don't have a y-intercept. So it's just x equals something. What do you think x equals? 3, because it crosses the x-axis at 3.
Yay.
Okay, good. Now, example 4. What kind of line is this?
Horizontal.
Okay, so hold on just a second. I heard a lot of you say undefined. This is not an undefined line. It's a zero. It has a 0 slope. This has an undefined slope, but this is a vertical line. This is a horizontal line. And the way that you write equations for horizontal lines are y equals 3, because it crosses the y-axis at 3. Okay, so those two are very simple. Anytime you,
Is that literally what this is?
yeah. So if you look at questions 13 through 20 on your homework, you'll see how kind of easy those are. It doesn't really require a whole lot of work.
Oh, it is 13.
Okay, let's move to page 3 of your notes. And you, with these 3 problems, you are actually going to get a lot of practice of converting into standard form with just a little bit of information. So it's really important that when you have problems like this, that you follow these steps until you become familiar enough with them that you don't have to go back and refer to them. All right, so let's look at example 5. It says, what is an equation in standard form? Okay, remember standard form, ax plus by equals c. Of a line that goes through this point and has this slope, okay? So they don't give us much information. So basically what we have to do is we have to start with the slope, then we have to plug it into point slope, convert it to slope intercept, and then turn it into standard form. So you're using everything that you've learned so far just to get it into standard form. Now, let's look at step number 1. Step number 1 says to determine the slope if it wasn't given. Well, in this case, it was given. But you'll notice in example 6 and 7, it isn't given. And when it's not given, you use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over. This page, if you write down all the formulas with me, you're going to end up with all of them by the time we're done. Okay.
Yay.
So because they already give us the slope, that is already step 1. So we're done. We can move on to step 2. Step 2 tells us to plug the slope and the point into the point slope formula. Remember point slope formula? Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my point and my slope and plug it into this equation. So I'm going to write the blank version out first.
Okay,
You don't have to, but I'm going to.
it looks nicer.
All right, and now I'm going to plug this information in. So y minus y1, my y1 is 7, equals my slope, which is 2/3, times x minus x1. My x1 is a -5, so it's actually going to be +5. And I just did here, I did step 2. Okay? Now, please stop me if you have any questions. Step 3 says to solve the point slope formula and convert it into the slope intercept formula. I'm not really solving, I'm just simplifying. So I need to get it into slope intercept, which is y equals mx plus b. So I need to turn this right here into y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to first start off by distributing my 2/3. Okay, and yes, we have fractions. It's the only one on here where you have to solve with a fraction. Okay, I still need to isolate my y, so I'm going to add 7 to both sides. And just as a refresher, I'm going to show you how to add fractions. So I have 10/3 plus 7 over 1. I need common denominators. My common denominator is going to be 3. So I'm going to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 3 over here. And then I have 10/3 plus 21/3. Where? 3. And I end up with 31/3. Okay? So I can simplify this all the way down. Y equals 2/3 x plus 31 over 3. And that was step 3.
It'll be a big box. Oh, it's a very small box. Never mind.
Oh, you gotta be Yankee. Oh.
Okay.
Very big box. Oh.
All right.
This is just the basement.
Now I'm going to bring my work up here and I'm going to move on to step 4. Step 4 says to rearrange the slope intercept formula into standard form. That's ax plus by equals c. Okay, so I'm going to take this equation and I'm going to turn it into standard form. So remember, when you're turning it into standard form, you're moving your x and your y both to the left side. So that means I have to move 2/3 x over by subtracting 2/3 x from both sides. So I have negative 2/3 x plus y equals 31/3. So this was step 4. I got it into standard form, but it's not officially into standard form because why?
You take x is negative.
X is
Times-
not
Yeah.
correct.
Everything's wrong.
So 2/3 and negative, right? Your a is a fraction and it's a negative. So what am I going to multiply the whole equation by? -3. So I'm going to multiply that whole thing by -3 and distribute your -3 to every single term. So -3 times -2/3 is 2x. -3 times y is a -3y. And -3 times 31 will give me a -31. And I have finished this problem.
The one with
So,
the-
two more examples.
Oh, 5 and 6. I like that. You can do it for all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, we're gonna do one more together and then you're gonna try 7 on your own. Okay, so let's go to example 6. Okay, and I'm going to be referring to the steps above. What is an equation in standard form of a line that passes through 9, -1, and 11, 3?
So they don't have a slope, so we have to do y2 minus y1.
Right. So we're going to follow step 1. We have to find the slope. Now, again, for some of you, you like to put these into a table before you do that. So I'm going to do that right over here. I'm going to put a table here. And I have 9, -1, and 11, 3. And then I'm just going to follow the slope formula. Okay. And we're going to solve for the slope. So it'll be 3 minus a -1, which is the same as 3 plus 1. And then 11 minus 9.
Will equal to 4 over negative. No, 4 over 2.
Which is 2. So we just did step 1 and found our slope. Okay. Check step 1. Okay, step 2. Plug the slope that you got and one of your points into the point slope formula. So I'm going to choose 9, -1. It'll turn into positive.
Oh.
Okay, so step 2, we have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so I'm just going to take this point and the slope that we found and put it in here. So you should end up with y plus 1. No, not a whole lot.
What do you mean by not a whole lot?
And then
Not a whole lot.
2 times
There's only 32 problems.
x minus 9.
And these ones are all like one word. Yeah.
All right, so this was step 2. Okay, I need you all to focus, please, on the lesson. Hold on. Is it a question about the lesson?
Oh, okay.
Yes. I bet he did.
Okay, we're now on step 3. So we are going to take the point slope form and turn it into slope intercept form. So we have y plus 1, and I'm going to distribute my 2. 2x minus 18. And then I subtract my 1, and I end up with y equals 2x minus 19. And that is step 3. Okay. All right, step 4, rearrange the slope intercept formula into standard form. So I need to get my x and my y on the left side. So I'm going to subtract 2x. And then I end up with
Oh, so it would it be
So that was step 4. But then I cannot have a negative, so I'm going to multiply everything by a -1. We don't have to get rid of a fraction. So if there's no fraction to get rid of, we just multiply by -1. So
It's so satisfying. It's so satisfying watching a long problem with this come together.
okay.
I just find it stressful. Well, in the beginning it's stressful, but then it's nice seeing like the alt.
Okay, I want all of you to try example 7 on your own. Follow the steps that I gave you over here in example 6, please. At each step, we'll check it. The first thing you need to do is find the slope for number 7. So everybody find the slope. All right, everyone should have gotten -2 for the slope.
Yes.
Okay, so step 2, you're gonna plug, we're gonna use this first point right here, -4, 2. You're gonna plug the point and the slope into the point slope formula. So everybody do that. Okay, everyone should have gotten this for your point slope equation,
Oh, yeah.
okay? If you didn't, what did you do wrong, Jaden?
Everything.
Well, we just took the point and the slope and plop to right in here.
You just plug it up.
That's-
That's. I did the wrong equation.
That's the only, well, okay.
Yeah, for me.
So once you get the point slope equation, we are going to convert it into slope intercept just by simplifying and isolating this y. So I want everyone to do that. Okay, so this is your step 3, slope intercept, y equals -2x minus 6. Now we're going to convert this into standard form. So you're going to move your x over. So I want everybody to do that if you have not already done so. Okay, so this should be your final answer. And actually, we don't have to do steps 5 and 6 because it's positive and it's not a fraction.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's okay.
You don't have to think.
Okay, let us move on to page 4. Okay, page 4, we are actually going to cross off domain, range, and zero function. Okay, we're not going to worry about those. Now, when you have a problem like this and you're putting it into a standard form equation, you're not really looking at your dependent or independent variables.
Mrs. Butterman, you send Andrew to the, because he will be leaving.
Okay,
Okay, I heard that.
all right. So,
What you-
and okay, I need you guys to focus, please. An online store sells songs for $1 each and movies for $12 each. Write and graph a linear equation that describes the items you can purchase if you spend the full $60. They want you to spend all of your $60. So, hold
I'm
on.
going to debt.
Thank you. All right, so for songs, I am going to use the variable G because I don't want to use S. It looks too much like a 5. Movies is M. So if songs are $1 each, that would be 1G. Movies are $12 each, so that'd be 12M. And I need to spend my entire $60. So I have to figure out how many songs and movies I can buy that will spend my full $60 without being under or over. Okay, so I'm going to create a table. All right, typically we have X and Y here, but now we have G and M. Well, I'm going to put my G here and my M here, okay? So if I buy no movies, how many songs can I buy? 60.
Yes.
If I buy one movie, how many songs can I buy?
48.
Oh, sorry, 48.
48.
If you buy 2, then you have 36, and then 24.
Mhm.
You got this, Christian.
It's just a pattern.
Why not just get 5?
Okay. So our x-intercept is going to represent the movies, okay? Our y-intercept is going to represent songs. So what is our x-intercept? What'd you say?
60.
Movies,
No, movies is x, so it's 5. When x, y is 0, so it's 5, 0. And then songs would be 0, 60. Okay. Now, it says up here, what are 3 combinations of numbers of songs and movies you can purchase? Well, these are our combinations right here in our table. If I buy 0 movies, I can buy 60 songs, 1 movie, 48 songs, and so on. So I've already come up with my possible combinations. Or just leave your table there. Yeah. Okay. And now we're going to graph. Okay. So let's come down here and let's graph. Okay. Movies is on our x-axis, so number of movies. And I'm going to go by ones, but I'm going to skip a line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then number of songs. And on this one, it looks like these can go up by, I'm going to go up by 4s. Oh, wait, will I be able to do that? 4
I think so.
times 15. 1, 2,
Which is only 45. Oh, no.
13. Oh, I can go up by 4s, yeah.
Yeah.
So 4, 8, 12, 16, oh, 18, 20, 24. Okay. And now I can graph my table. So I'm going to start up here at 0, 60. And then 1, 48. 2, 36. And there you go. There you have it. And this would be a discrete graph. I'm not going to draw my line. Okay. And you do have a problem like this on your homework that I want to do with you if we have time. But we just have one more problem to do. We're not going to do all 3 on the back. We're just going to do number 10. So, any questions on that? Okay, let's go to page 6. We're not going to do 9 or 11. We're just going to do number 10. So, number 10 is just like 5, 6, and 7. You're going to get it all the way down to standard form, except once you're done, you will then find the x and the y intercepts. So, yes. Yeah, we're not doing 9 or 11. Okay, so what I want you to do for number 10 is I want you to use numbers 6 and 7 as a guide to get all the way down to standard form. And we're going to do it one step at a time again. So the first thing that I want you to do is find the slope of these 2 points. So everybody find the slope. This is your slope. Any questions on how to find the slope? Okay, we're going to use the first point, and now what are you going to do? What equation are we going to use? Point slope. So you're going to plug the point and the slope into the point slope equation. So everyone do that. I'm skipping my normal steps here. Okay.
This is actually a 7-step.
Wait, how many steps do you need? 5.
This one right here. This is going to be possibly 7 or 8 steps. It's okay.
Wait.
It depends on if you have to turn your standard form, if there's a negative or a fraction. But look, just follow like we did 6 and 7. Okay, so after point slope form, what do we need to turn this into?
But we have to,
Slope intercept.
plus,
So everyone, simplify this into slope intercept form. Okay, this is the equation you should have for slope intercept. So what is the third equation we're going to use? Or the fourth, really?
We're turning it into,
when we
Standard
do
form.
y
Yes.
equals negative 1x minus 2, and what do you have to do plus 1x? Or like,
Yes, so we're turning it into standard form. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to add x to both sides. AJ?
it's probably good if I didn't want X.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I got 1x plus y equals -2.
Yeah, that's correct.
so,
So
Steps 4, 5, and 6.
that's it.
No, it's negative.
nope. So this is steps 4 through 6. So really we don't, or step 4. So this is where we ended on examples 5, 6, and 7. But we now need to find the x and the y intercept. This goes back to examples 1 and 2. So if I write out the equation,
So we're going a little bit more than full circle. Yeah.
okay, I'm going to write it out twice.
Is there any updates on the homework?
Yes, the last 3 problems on the homework are like this.
Whoa.
So if I want to find, the x-intercept, I put 0 where the y is.
So 0, negative
And so that means x equals -2. And if I want to find the y-intercept, I put 0 where the x is, and I solve for y. And it just so happens that the intercept is the same for both of them. So we have an intercept of -2, 0,
Oh,
and 0, -2. And so this would be your last and final step.
Let's go. Easy.
So really,
So we're going to extra, okay.
okay. So that concludes the notes for lesson 3-5.